So I'm doing this as a Chazzara of the Sugya of the Ran, Yud Aleph, Yud Aleph, and Beis, and the issue of Taka Berishana. So before you start the area, you just have to, you don't even have to, what's great about this, you don't have to do any, I guess it's called great, you don't have to do any Gemara. And it's a one-line Mishnah, okay? And it goes like this, all right? So let's just get our cases down, okay? What is a set of Tekiah Shofar comprised of? Give me the average set.
Tekiah, Shvarim, Trua, Tekiah.
Okay, boom. Okay, so you have a Tekiah. You have X in the middle, whether it's Shvarim, Trua, Shvarim, or Tekiah. And then
closing Tekiah.
Okay, and then the following set, same thing? Yeah. Right? Okay. Right? Okay. Now, we have to make up a shiur for Tekiah. To make it easy for you, for everybody, for myself, all right, rather than use if I ask you, what is the shiur of a Tekiah on average? It's about, what would you say?
3 seconds?
No, well, it's not 40. 6 seconds.
Mm.
All right, but
6 seconds?
5 and 6. But to make it easy, for mathematical sake, we're gonna make up a shiur. It's gonna be 10 seconds.
Good. We'll work on metric of 10.
Right, metric of 10. Okay. So the Mishnah says as follows. The Mishnah says Taka Berishona. All right. So what happens? So a guy blows his first Tekiah. Okay. And he's a smart guy. What does he do? Umashach b'shniya kishtayim. Yeah. So he blows the first tekiah, and the first tekiah is 10 seconds. He blows his shvarim trua, and then he blows his second tekiah 20 seconds. Why would he blow a second tekiah 20 seconds? So it says mashach b'shniya kishtayim. He wants it to be 2. Why would it be 2? It'd be 1 for
the end.
All right. So he wants it to count as 2 tekiyahs. The last tekiah of the first set and the first tekiah of the second set. That's his thinking. I'll blow a 20-second blast. Okay, now remember, it's one sound. Right?
Yeah.
I figure it'll count for both. So the Mishnah says, Ein biyado elachas. Which, what does that mean? It means that all he has is 1. One what?
Which one? We don't know.
No, the be intuitive.
The last one of
Thank
the
you.
first set.
There's nothing wrong with saying that, okay? But of course, the implication in that is that we're not worried about, and this is a general halacha, the length of tekiah, don't say tekiah gedola.
Right.
The length of a tekiah is irrelevant once you hit the minimal shear.
Right.
Once you hit 10 seconds.
Beyond?
Exactly, you want it for like a year. Okay, or so you would think.
Whatever. Okay, yes.
Now, watch this. So the Ran says, okay, so first he says, he explains the facts of the case. Masis and Taka Rishona, Bibshuta Shalifnei Trua. So that's the first tekiah. Umashach b'shniya, but tekiah shel achar trua. Right? Why? Kadei shetala l'shtayim l'sof siman zeh, siman meaning the set, l'tchila siman above. So ein biyado alachas and farshina begemara taima. Now, okay, so now he's quoting there's a different Gemara that takes up this case on Chav Zayin Amud Aleph, where it says mishum depsuke tekiyasa mehadadi l'mefaskinan. So if I asked you, you're a musician, think about it, or you don't have to be a musician to know this, but you're a musician, so for sure you know this. What's the Why would you never say that if I blew a 20-second tekiah, it should count as 2? Why can't it count as 2? If you just have to throw out a reason,
you didn't
one.
stop in the middle.
Okay, and therefore
it's one blast.
Right. How are you going to differentiate one from the other?
Yeah.
There's no hefsek.
It's the same thing. Right.
Simple logic, right? No hefsek between the tekiyahs, right? So I didn't blow 2 tekiyahs. I blew one sound, one tekiah. Okay. So he says this. He says,
I don't know what the havamina is.
Okay, so hold on. So he says, all right, so he says, mihu. Okay, he says, dafka b'tkiyas shehein kol echad. Okay, he says, but this issue of blowing an extra long sound is only applicable to the case of tekiah, right? Why? Why? Because he says, ava asa tekiah ushvarm utrua beneficha achas yatsa. But let's say I blew in one breath all 3. Okay, I'm yotze. Okay, sharehein kolos mufrashim.
It's not the breath; it's the sound.
Okay, ukvar nikar bein tekiah l'shvarim. Right, and you can tell the difference between the 2. Okay, and you see there's a Gemara in Yerushalmi, v'hainu garsina de Yerushalmi, taka v'riya v'taka beneficha achas yatsa. But now you have one last question. On Antnan, you need shalosh in one set, in the set of 3, not the tekiah, shvarim, trua, tekiah, but all of them. Means the 9 blasts. You need a total of 27 kolos. How do you have 27 kolos if it's all in one neficha? He says no. He says u'mishani shelo yifachos klomar ze eno poches sharei nikar bekolon shehein shalosh. But you hear 3 sounds.
Right.
Okay. So here there's a havamina. The havamina is you would think that the problem of blowing. This is the easy part. Okay. You think the problem of blowing a long blast is really a problem of neficha, right? That every kol requires a neficha, right? But you see that can't be because you see you could blow a tekiah, shvarim, trua, tekiah. Kamash malan. Then no. It goes by the call. So you're right, the way you categorized it. But I'm just going to give you this one far over. So the easy way to learn is very simple. What would you think? And you're a musician. A musician would say, a mice in a ficha, right, is what produces a call. How does a call, what makes a sound come out? when I blow. So therefore, you would say, what makes one kol different than the other? The blowing, right?
You could say.
Right, that's the havmina. Havmina is you actually need a maisa. Kamash wanted to know that as long as you have memela from the kol itself, some sort of differentiation, you can hear a tkiya versus a shvarim. Neficha is irrelevant. So the question is to go by maisa neficha or simply memela from the kol itself. And that's easy. Okay, that's the easy part. Okay, so now comes the hard part. Okay, all right, everyone good? Okay,
But that 20-second tekiya is a single sound.
single sound.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Udamrinan im biyado el achas. Okay. Now, when we say I only have one, what does that mean? Now, we said before, okay, and this is the part that I'm going to let you guys think about a little bit. We said before that if I only have one, right? Im biyado el achas means I only have one tkiya. Really. So he says, Ika manda amar dahainu tkiya shetaka lifnei trua. Aval osa tekiya. In other words, what does it mean I only have one? I mean I only have the original tekiya I blew. Okay, the original one, the first of the set. But he says, aval osa tekiya shnia lo also lo leklum. I haven't done anything. Not that I don't have one tekiya. I have how many tekiyas? 0. So I've blown a 20-second blast in an attempt to blow two, and what am I left with? Nothing. So mishum deiu savar la'afsuga tisalik letarti the less la hafsek hilchach lo reisha isla sofa below sofa isla reisha. So what's the problem? The problem is that you have a tekiya here and tekiya here, right? But the reisha and the sefa have nothing to do with each other. What does that mean? I don't know. So he keeps going. He says, "There's a raya. Ve'vi raya ledinzem irishalmi the garsina hasam taka b'rishona mashach b'shnia kishtayim aim b'yad alachas." That's what we would think it means. Rav Avar bar Zeira b'shem Rav Zamina Amar afilu achas aim b'yado lama reisha gabe sefa mitzdaref vis sefa gabe reisha mitzdaref lo reisha isla sofa lo sofa isla reisha. Okay. Last point. V'hainu nami ditan taka b'rishona de'ilo lamali. Lamale. In other words, why does the Mishnah say taka barishona? I could have just said taka. What does barishona mean? It's telling you lad kure klal hacha tekiya rishona. Okay, it's telling you that this is the first tekiya. Elavade lomar shem biyado ela osa tekiya shetaka barishona. Period. So what do we have here? We have a machlokas. One side says that the last tekiya of 20 seconds counts as one tekiya. The other side says that it counts as 0 tekiyas. Now, what is the most astonishing part about this? Okay. Now, Yona, you said before. What was the question you said before? You said, "What's the
havmina?"
Right. What's the havmina to say that it's 2 kolos? But let's think about it for a second. Let's play this out. Okay.
Because you define it by time. If you're a stickler for time and you're defining it by time, you might have a havmina. But
let's get even better. Let's test this shita's position. Okay. Let's say I blew a 10-second tekiya as my first tekiya. Okay, then I do my trua, and then I blow a 19-second tekiya. What would that shita say?
What shita? The second one?
The second one. The second one says it counts as nothing. What would he say about that?
I don't even see the difference. Say you have nothing.
Oh, would he? But he wouldn't, because the Mishnah says what?
Kishtayim.
So what do I need?
You need that extra second.
Right. What do I have if I had that extra second?
The length of 2.
The length of 2.
The length.
Relative to the first. The length of 2 relative to the first.
Okay, but 1 second. So let's make sure we're clear about this before I go with the knife. So we're saying that everyone has to agree that I have from 10 seconds to 19 in the last tekiya of the set to say that it counts as the tekiya. But if I hit 20, according to that position, I have nothing. So 1 second. But what does that mean? It means that the only way for it to be nothing is for you to register 2 tekiyas.
2, yeah.
So 1 second. That means there's a reality to 2 tekiyas and 1 sound.
Why?
The question to ask, the cutesy part is the fact that it would seem like, according to the sheet that holds, that you need that it's only when you hit the point of 2 tekiyas that it counts as 0, right? That implies there's a reality to 1 call being 2 tekiyas, which you said before is ridiculous, which I happen to agree with, right, on the surface. But let's put that to the side. What's the machlokas to say a tekiya that it counts as 1 tekiya? And what's the machlokas to say that it counts as nothing? All right. What makes more sense? What's the machlokas? So I think it's a fascinating possibility, but I think this is the Ran's explanation. What he's really telling you about this mitzvah business. What you're saying by the second side makes a lot of sense. It makes sense to easily say that one way to look at tekiya is what's a tekiah? Tekiah is a shear of 10 seconds, right? But the key thing is that when I blow a tekiah at the beginning of the set and I blow a tekiah at the end of the set, those are two independent kolos. The fact they're part of a set is secondary or accidental to what they are, but there's no relationship between the two. They just happen to be part of the same set. But according to the other side saying is that what does the first tekiah do? It's not just a tekiah, but it's koveya the tekiyahs of that set. Notice tekiah Rishona means not a first tekiah, but it is the tekiah now of the set. So what does the tekiah Achrona have to be?
Same thing.
The tekiah Rishona. The tekiah Achrona must be, that's what it means, Reisha Mitztaref L'Seifa, Seifa Mitztaref L'Reisha. It means that it's koveya the tekiah for the entire set. So now, there is no independent identity of a tekiah. What's a tekiah? When you hear the Baal tekiah blow, according to the side, and you hear a tekiah, you're not hearing just a sound, you're hearing the tekiah of this set. And therefore, the last tekiah must be what?
Same as the first.
The same one?
But that was my question. What?
The Ran says, based on that idea, the Ran says, Ulefikach pirshu dechiktani ein biyad alachas. So what does it really mean that you only have one? It means you only have one. Hayu l'tekiah shalachareya. The lomar, the l'sof simon, right? Also lo. The lola haschala simon sheni. That's a simple way to learn. The last tekiah, if I blow a 20-second tekiah at the end, right? What does it count for? It's one tekiah of and the last tekiah of the set. V'chitema lamalei lemisni taka barishona, lisnei herech b'shniya kishtayim, em yodalachas the excuse me, the b'hachisagi. So Tiritz Ramban Zal, the lefisha ain't shil tekios lamala. Okay, since there's no upper limit to a tekiah, she'im ratza laharech marech. Right, he can make it as long as he wants to. I can blow a 5-hour long tekiah. Right, ain't a davar nicker. Now here's a key point. It's not recognizable. Keshehu marech, when he wants to blow, let's say at the end of the first set, he wants to blow a 20-second tekiah. There's nothing in there that's nicker, that's recognizable. Keshehu marech sheichavin l'shtei tekiyas. There's nothing in the blast that tells me that his intention is for two tekiyas.
It's a straight blast.
There's no hefsek, right? Here comes the part though. Elam machmas keshehu kefelim b'shir tekiyah rishona. But except for why would you think it's two? Because what's he doing?
The length of two.
He's doubling what?
Yeah, the
first. Now remember, we rejected the side that says it counts as nothing. So now we're in the world of it counts as one. But the Ramban's telling you, listen, why could you think it's two?
Because it's double the length.
So he says, Umishum hakik taka brishona shebitchilas simon v'herech b'shniyah kishtayim brishona sakadai techamina. You might have thought kivan deherech ba kishtayim shebarishona dilahave keilu hefsek meintayim v'ikashtei tekiyos. So it'll be as if you'll think the guy, even though there's no hefsek whatsoever in the call, all you think
essentially is what it is.
Okay, but what's that idea? But 1 second, what do you mean Marasayan? But it's
the same concept.
Can you tell?
Somebody might think something, therefore you can't do it.
But can you tell any difference whatsoever in the call that it's two tekiyas? There's nothing in there that's
only the top.
The Ramban, I think, is saying it's like this. The Ramban is saying is that halacha comes along and basically removes any musical aspect whatsoever to the concept of a call. It's a purely abstract call. If it's an abstract call, you have such a thing as a shear. And just like you can have you can eat two kazesim, even though in your mouth is one big bush, but halacha says no, we recognize two kazesim, same thing here. Even though it's 20 seconds. Yeah, but to what?
Yeah, but the halacha, the sound is irrelevant. The halacha system comes in and creates a shear.
Right, and now you have two shiurim, even though there's no hefsek. Right. Two abstract separate kolos. Okay. But we reject that. Yeah. Okay. So now comes the coup d'etat. Okay. So with that all said, now comes the hardest part of this whole sugya. All right. This took my guys about 45 minutes this morning just to get their heads around the facts. But you guys are like smart adults, so I'm not worried about it. I mean, these guys are private equity guys, so he's big time. Okay. So the last part of the Ramban is like this: Umas nisan shma'inan. Okay, and that this is the best part. She'im ratza laharech bitkiya, okay, va'afilu kama marech. All right, so a guy can make a tekiah as long as he wants. All right, so we've established that. I can make tekiah as long as I want to. I can make it 1,000,000 years. Okay, but, all right, aval im ratza laharech b'shvarim, but let's say I want to make my shvarim longer. All right, now let's just get our math. Now we're gonna go back to 6 seconds now to make it easier. All right, a tekiah is how long? 6 seconds. Each shever is how long? Each shever.
2. 10 seconds.
No, but now we're going to go back to 6. It's easier this way. Each shever is 2. Yeah. So the 3 shvarim equal 6. And what does that equal? A tekiah. So keep that in mind. Keep the numbers in mind. 1 shever is 2. Okay. 3 of them should equal 6. and that happens to equal the length of a tekiah.
Right. The first tekiah sets the tone. Okay.
Okay. Oh, so he says this. He says, but let's say a guy comes along and says, you know what? I want to lengthen my shvarim. Okay? Yesh misha kasav. Shershus biyado. Okay? Uvilvad yarech hatkiya. Now it's important to hear this. Yoser min hashever. Okay? Yoser min hashever. Lahakir b'nein.
One shever or the whole shvar?
No, one shever. So meaning what? Okay,
One
so let's say I blow a 15-second tekiah. Okay? Each shever must be how long?
5.
No.
Oh, 2.
No.
2. Why? Oh, 15?
The minimum is 2. What's the maximum of each shever?
14.
14.
Yeah. Why 14?
Can't be
Look,
as
because
long
he's
as-
saying it can't be longer than tekiah.
differentiate.
No shever could ever be longer than tekiah.
No, but 15
right.
is not longer. It's equal to.
Right, so, but if I blew, no, but he's saying like this, if I want to extend my shever, not my shvarim,
Yeah.
but each shever, as long as each shever is shorter in time than my tekiah, it's okay.
But then the whole shvarim will be much longer than it.
Correct, but he's not worried about that.
Okay.
Why?
'Cause the
Because he says, as long as it's lahakir beinan. So think about it. If I have a 15-second tekiah and 3 14-second shvarim, right? Each shever is shorter than my tekiah. So even though the 3 shvarim together may be more than tekiah, who cares?
Yes.
Each sound is less, and that's how you know it's a shvarim.
Because there's a hefsek, so this is something
Correct.
that hefsek is meaningful, therefore it...
Well, no, but there's a half-second between the tekiah and the shvarim also. I blow a 15-second tekiah, I stop, shever, 14 seconds stop, shever, 14 seconds stop.
That's fine.
But since each shever in and of itself is less than a tekiah, that's how you know it's a difference. So he says, and he doesn't like that, okay? Because he says, no. He says, he did this severely. Hachi, Ella, Sarech, okay? This is key. He says, Sarech, Shelo Yarech b'shever, K'dei Shlosha Shvarim Beinonim. So no shever can equal 3 average shvarim. Okay, why? Let's do our math, okay? If I blow a shever that's the length of 3 shvarim, that are the average 3 shvarim, how long is that shever?
18
6
seconds.
seconds.
No, 6 seconds.
If you blow...
The average shever is 2 seconds. I blow 3 of them. One shever is 6 seconds. The Ram would say, don't move on. Because what have I now just blown?
Right.
A tekiah. I blown tekiah. So he says, "Dikema the ignuchi ganach shir tekiah kishlosha shvarim kol sheharech v'shever echad kishlosha shvarim." Right? Ain't a shever min gnicha ela pshutahi. It's a tekiah. It's a tekiah.
I understand that.
It's not even
Do you?
shever.
What's the machlokas? You have 2 possibilities. Okay? Is it that? This is really awesome. This is like the. Is it that my just factually? Is it that as long as my shever is less time than my tekiah, it's good? So I can have a tekiah that's a year long, as long as my shever is 364 days, I'm good. Or no, a shever can never be the length of 3 shvarim, because that's the length of a tekiah. And now what have I blown?
A tekiah.
Okay, so the fundamental...
The question is that we agree that there's a minimal shear of tekiah. The question is that when is the identity of a tekiah ultimately expressed? Okay, is it expressed through 6 seconds? Once the minimum has been achieved. So therefore, if I blow a shever that's 6 seconds, it can't be a shever. It's a tekiah. Once I hit a note, a kol that is 6 seconds long,
converts.
right? So it never was a shever, and it's a tekiah.
Or
What
is
is
it relative to the kata where it takes place?
So when does it become? When is it ultimately identified as a tekiah? How do you know it was a tekiah for sure? How do you know it's a tekiah for sure? When do you know it's a tekiah then?
When it's the first sound.
No,
No,
no.
When it goes past 6 seconds.
No, not according to the first side. No, according to the first side. According to the second side, we know. Once I hit 6 seconds,
Oh,
it's a
that's
tekiah.
the second side.
Right. What about the first side?
When
you
you
like
know
the
it's
first
a
side?
tekiah?
Tell me when does it become a tekiah? When can you say?
The natural thing
When
would be to
it's-
say in the Seder.
No, when it's the first sound in the kata.
Wrong.
Or the
How do you know
third-
that's wrong? How do you know that you know that's wrong? Why?
Because you also have tekiyot that are not the first.
What was this? What did he say you have to do? What has to be done? I blow my tekiah. Let's say I blow a tekiah of 60
As long as it's
seconds.
the longest sound.
What does a shever have to be?
Shorter than...
Shorter than tekiah.
Sure, yeah.
So when is the identity of the tekiah expressed?
Not until you hear a shever.
Thank you.
All right, not until you hear a shever.
The identity of the tekiah is actualized through the Zman Shever.
Wow.
That is a wild idea.
Hello.
You blew a sound. It's the tekiah in potentia. And when is it actualized? Once you know your Shever.
Compare it to.
Exactly.
The Kia doesn't stand on its own.
Exactly.
It's
That
defined by the
that
next
is an
sound.
unbelievable idea.
Defined by the next sound.
That's very nice.
Right? That's the machlokas. That's the machlokas. When is the identity of the tekiah expressed? Is it just through the minimum shear, or no? Once I complete the shever, because then I'll know if I had a tekiah. Just to answer the question that someone asked about trua, how this would different mean trua. Trua is different than shvarm. Shvarm is really compromised sound. A trua, once time exists by a trua, once it has a shear, it's not a trua anymore. A shever can have a shear of a sound as long as it's not more than a tekiah. But by a trua, once it has a shear of sound, it's no longer trua.